Azuka, twice married, still chosen by a prince. In the warm clay-red village of Umukwata Kingdom, nestled between thick forests and whispering hills, lived a woman named Azuka. She was once the pride of the village, graceful, beautifully endowed, intelligent, and full of laughter. Her voice carried the sweetness of morning dew, and her eyes danced with the light of life. People often said she was born under a lucky star, that the gods had smiled on her. Her parents, Mazi Okafor and Mama Ifeoma, were respected farmers who raised her with dignity, discipline, and deep faith in the traditions of their ancestors. From a young age, Azuka displayed wisdom that belied her years. She learned to cook with the elderly women, helped midwives, and wove mats that sold quickly in the village market. Men came from other towns just to behold her beauty, but her parents guarded her closely. At the age of 18, Azuka was married to Ifeanyi, a strong and ambitious palm wine tapper from the neighboring village of Obolo. He was well liked, a man of laughter and gifts. Ifeanyi courted Azuka with songs and yams, with cloth from Onitsha and dreams of a good life. Their union was blessed in a grand celebration that echoed through Umukwata for days. Azuka moved to his home and embraced her new role with joy. She bore him a son within the first year, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. One fateful night, Ifeanyi went on his usual wine-tapping trip and never returned from the forest. His lifeless body was found at the foot of a tall palm tree the next morning. He had fallen, the villagers said, perhaps from a misstep, or perhaps from a whisper of the wind. Grief wrapped Azuka like a wet wrapper. She cried for days that turned to weeks. Her hair was cut, her wrappers dull, her laughter vanished. Yet she held on for the sake of her infant son. Her family brought her back to Umukwata. The people murmured, offering words of sympathy, but they also watched. Time passed, and Azuka tried to rebuild her life. Her family encouraged her to remarry, as tradition allowed. They feared for her future, and she longed again for companionship, for a partner who would walk beside her. Her second husband, Nze, was a gentle blacksmith from Umukwata itself. A widower with no children, he had known pain and valued peace. He spoke few words but carried a kind heart and respectful gaze. Azuka married him quietly, without the fanfare of the first union. Their home was humble but warm. For a year, peace reigned. Azuka smiled again. Ekene treated her like a queen and embraced her son as his own. But tragedy struck once more. One morning, Azuka found him lifeless on their sleeping mat. No signs of illness, no cries in the night, just silence. People said he died in his sleep. Others whispered darker things. Twice married, twice widowed. The women began to whisper. The men averted their eyes. She is cursed, they said. Wherever she goes, death follows. Her in-laws, once welcoming, now feared her presence. They chased her out, refusing her inheritance or support. Even in the market, her presence made others uncomfortable. Her laughter was seen as arrogance, her silence as pride. She moved with her son to the edge of the village, to a small hut her father built on family land. She wove mats by day and prayed by night. Children pointed at her and ran away. Some elders crossed the road to avoid her path. Azuka faded into solitude. Despite all, she did not beg. She did not curse the gods. She endured. She nurtured her son with wisdom and grace. Each morning she went to the stream, washed clothes, and greeted nature like an old friend. Her strength became her silence, her dignity, her shield. Meanwhile, in the palace at the heart of Umukwata, Prince Obinna had returned from the city where he studied law and leadership. He was tall, handsome, with eyes that searched for more than beauty. His father, King Ikenna, had ruled wisely but firmly, upholding tradition and demanding that his son choose a bride before the Ofala festival. Suitors lined the palace halls, daughters of wealthy men, maidens with fine jewelry and polished smiles, but none touched Obinna's soul. "My heart cannot pretend," he told his mother. "I seek not just a queen for the people, but a woman whose soul speaks to mine." One morning, needing solitude, he rode alone through the village outskirts. As his horse approached the stream, he saw her, a woman bent over the water, washing clothes. The sun shimmered on her skin. Her hands moved with grace. Her son played quietly nearby, gathering sticks. Obinna paused. There was something about her, a sadness, yes, but also strength. She seemed unaware of his gaze, focused on her task. That image lingered in his mind long after he returned to the palace. He returned the next day, and the next. Each time he greeted her, sometimes helped carry her mats, or asked about her son. She was polite but distant. To her, he was just Obi, a kind stranger. Over time, they spoke more. She told him stories from her childhood, of her dreams, of the pain of being judged. He listened without interruption. He spoke of his travels, of books he read, of the kind of ruler he hoped to become. One day, as the sun dipped low, Obinna sat with her by the stream. Her son was nearby, asleep on a folded wrapper. "Azuka," he said, "will you marry me?" She turned slowly, eyes wide. "You don't know what you ask. I am twice widowed. The village calls me cursed. Even the children fear me." "I am not afraid," he said. "I see your pain, and I honor it. I see your strength, and I cherish it. I want you by my side, not because of your past, but because of who you are." When she learned he was the prince, Azuka's heart faltered. She tried to push him away, fearing disgrace, fearing for him, but love had taken root. Obinna stood before his father and declared, "I have chosen Azuka as my bride." The palace erupted. "A twice widowed woman," King Ikenna roared. "She will never sit on the throne of Umukwata." The queen wept. Councilmen shook their heads. Young maidens gossiped in corners. The chief priest warned of omens, but Obinna stood tall. "Then I will not sit on the throne either," he said. "Let the crown fall before I betray my heart." Word spread through Umukwata like dry harmattan fire. Some were outraged, others were curious, but the loudest voices were of mockery. At the public gathering before the Ofala festival, Obinna held Azuka's hand and brought her before the people. Murmurs turned into roars. "How can she be queen? She is cursed. She will bring ruin." Then a voice rose above them all. Nze Okonkwo, the oldest elder in the kingdom, hobbled forward with his staff. "You call her cursed," he said, "yet she has survived what most of you could not. She has known love and loss, betrayal and loneliness. She did not beg, she did not steal. She raised her son with honor." He turned to the people. "A true queen is not made by wrappers or weddings. She is made by fire. And this woman has walked through fire and come out whole." Silence fell. Then, one by one, heads bowed. On the morning of the Ofala festival, the drums rolled like thunder. The sky was clear. Obinna appeared in royal attire, his coral beads glowing. Moments later, Azuka stepped into the square, radiant in white and red, her son beside her. Some gasped, some cheered, Others wept. The village priest raised his hands. "Let no one speak against what the gods have accepted," he cried. Rain began to fall, gentle, cleansing, and warm. The people said it was the blessing of the ancestors. Azuka and Obinna were married that day. As queen, Azuka transformed Umukwata. She built a center for widows, opened schools for girls, and started markets where women could trade without fear or ridicule. She taught courage, compassion, and character. Her past no longer defined her, it empowered her. King Ikenna, before his passing, whispered to Obinna, "Your heart saw what my eyes could not. She was always meant to be queen." When rain falls suddenly on a sunny day in Umukwata, the elders say, "Azuka is smiling." Her story is told around fires, in markets, and to little girls with big dreams. She was rejected by men, but crowned by destiny. Even the broken can become whole. And sometimes the woman the world rejects becomes the queen it never knew it needed. The people of Umukwata never forgot Azuka. Statues were carved in her honor, and songs were sung about her trials and triumph. Mothers told their daughters, "Never let your past bury your worth." Her son grew into a kind prince, shaped by his mother's strength. And Prince Obinna, now King Obinna, ruled with a heart guided not just by crown, but by love. Azuka lived long, her face lined with the wisdom of years and her heart lightened by joy. She planted trees that shaded widows and wells that quenched the thirst of orphans. Her palace was not a place of gold and marble, but of open doors and warm fires. And when she passed, the skies wept. Today, in Umukwata, girls still gather by the stream where Azuka once washed clothes. They tell each other, "Let your scars sing, for one day someone will love your strength." And boys are taught that a woman's value is not in her past, but in her power to rise. Azuka's story is no longer whispered in shame, it is chanted in celebration. And long after her time, the queen who was once rejected lives on in the soul of Umukwata. She who had every reason to break became the symbol of wholeness. She who was doubted became the light that guided a kingdom, and her name, Azuka, means the past is greater than the pain.